Good morning, YouTube friends and family. It's looking like we're going to have another beautiful day. It's a late winter morning, February 18, 2018. Check out this variety of tree kale. This has some different characteristics than the dino kale. Just as vigorous of a grower, just as large. But another plant that I'll be taking cuttings off of. Absolutely gorgeous. At this point, everything's beginning to wake up, meaning the plants are coming out of dormancy. And you know, the morning time is one of my favorite times to be out in the garden when the weather's nice. The birds are out. Everything's so peaceful. Most people are still sleeping right now. There's a lot on the gardening agenda today, and I can't wait to get started. So we've got some possible rain coming into the area in a few days, and boy, would that be nice. We haven't had rain in quite some time, and now that I've got plenty of transplants in the ground, some seeding done, and a lot of these plants coming out of dormancy, if we can get a rain event, it makes all the difference. Rain does something that watering by hand just cannot do. Plants seem to almost double in size after a good rain event when the ground's been fully saturated. So I'm really hoping that that comes through. Here's a nice beautiful patch of borage. You can see some of these flowers just glistening in the morning sun. And I've got several patches of these popping up here and there. It's a prolific plant, will self-seed. I don't have as many plants as last year. But they are popping up in some rather appropriate spots for the garden. I'm happy to have them around. I know the bees are as well. I've been seeing them fly around these plants. Edible flowers, edible leaves. You know, this kumquat tree is like the never-ending kumquat tree. It's hard to believe there's this many kumquats left on here. I've been harvesting off of here for months. Usually a handful at a time, but what's really, really nice about this citrus is that they stay hanging on the tree for months, and they're just as good, if not better, than they were a month or two ago. Great way to start the day. Anyway, I got to thinking about how after just dismantling this composting station that I built out of pallets several years ago, how I go about doing my composting these days. I'm really happy with my current system, and I thought I'd share with you what I do as far as composting is concerned across the board. So whether it's plants that have expired in the garden that I'm composting, or kitchen scraps and that sort of thing. So over the years, I've tried so many different techniques for composting. The simplest probably being just finding a dead space in the yard and starting a compost pile. Throwing my leaves, grass clippings, food scraps, whatever the case may be, into a pile and letting it decompose, turning it every so often. And that does the job. But my only problem with it is that on occasion you'd find evidence of rodents visiting the pile. And it does require that you do get the mixture down pretty good so that you're activating that compost and it's breaking down appropriately, which isn't a big deal, but it does require a little bit of work and having to turn the pile and such. So in the most basic form, that does well, but I don't do that anymore, and that's why I recently took down that composting station. Instead, now what I do with all of the garden waste at least is I create a pile into the chicken coop or the chicken run. So back behind the fence here in the chicken run, I've got a compost pile. I can just easily toss new garden waste items right into this pile. And over time it breaks down, and from time to time the chickens will become curious about it and start scratching, usually from the edge. You can see where they started working into it there. And they really help to expedite the breakdown of the pile. It's out of the way. The side benefit is that whatever bugs and such come into this pile become chicken feed. So this is my new absolute favorite way to do a compost pile. And I stay away from adding any type of food scraps or anything like that to this pile, which keeps away any possible rodents. Now for kitchen food scraps, what I like to do is compost that stuff down in my worm bin. So this is my bathtub worm bin, and I just reset this bin last September, so a little over 5 months ago. See what kind of activity we got in here. Activity has slowed a bit for the winter and the cold. But the worms are doing a fantastic job breaking down these kitchen scraps. We got banana peels in here, paper towels, whatever it is. Vegetable scraps, apple peels. They come in, and in no time at all they break this stuff down. The cardboard on top just helps to keep everything dark, and if they end up running out of food scrap, which never really happens, they will start going after the cardboard, as well as breaking down the coconut coir that was the main bedding in this tub. So I'm of the opinion that everyone should have a worm bin. You can make these as big or as small as you want. You can put it near the back of the house, you can put it on a balcony, in a garage. You can use a little Rubbermaid container, whatever the case may be, but just super effective at breaking down the majority of your kitchen waste. Now for everything else that you wouldn't put into a worm bin, like an old half of a burrito or some meat scraps and such, a black soldier fly larva bin will make quick work of those things, and that really completes the entire loop of a composting system that's there on site. There's just about anything you can put into a black soldier fly larva bin, and not only do they make quick work of it, but the larvae themselves become chicken feed. So having a few backyard chickens, you got your chicken coop compost pile, you've got some black soldier flies larvae taking care of the rest of the scrap that you don't put in the worm bin, feeding the chickens the larvae, and it's just a really good system. Another technique that I'll use from time to time is to simply dig a hole and bury scraps in there. On occasion, I'll produce too much scraps for the worm bin, and if I don't have a black soldier fly larva bin operating, my third go-to would be to dig a hole, a nice deep hole, and just bury those scraps right in the hole, backfill it. And that's another great way to compost. The worms come in, help to break that stuff down. I'd stay away again from using any type of meat products or anything doing that. But items that you put into a worm bin, that'd work great for the dig a hole composting technique. And this is the last technique that I use. This is just a little cinder block station, and I like to pile up my wood chips here so they're easily accessible when I need them in the garden. But over time, these piles of wood chips will break down and become really, really good compost towards the bottom of the heap, bring in a lot of worms. So this is another form of composting, but really this is all about just keeping those wood chips handy. So I'd recommend using something like this as well. And look at those clouds that have rolled in. Isn't that beautiful? And I said this before many times, but an overcast day is one of the best days to get out in the garden, get stuff done, whether you're transplanting, seeding, watering. So I'm going to be taking advantage of this day. So that's how we do it around here. To summarize, we've got the chicken coop composting pile, the worm bin, we got a black soldier fly larva bin we use from time to time, the dig, the bury technique, and also a wood chip pile that's always on site. It works for us. I know it'll work for you. I'd be interested to hear from you guys. Is there a technique that you employ that we didn't discuss in this video? I'd love to hear from you. We're always open to new ideas. So with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Until next time, this is Dan from plantabundance.com. Take care. I'll be talking to you again soon.